and welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today I am joined by Vic Williams. Vic is an author, speaker, and coach specializing in
There we go.
dyslexia and there you go, in dyslexia and ADHD. Hi, Vic. How are you?
I'm very well, and you? Thanks, Elle. I appreciate the invite to join you.
Oh no, it's fantastic. I'm really, really excited about this podcast. So I obviously just gave like a very top line description of who you are, but
Yep.
could you just tell us a bit more about you and what you actually do?
So, as you said, I'm an author, a speaker, and a coach. I do a lot of training as well, and I specifically focus on people with dyslexia and ADHD, and a group of people within that I call change makers, innovators, leaders, and mavericks.
Yeah.
And the whole idea there is to help that group of people through mindset, habits, and flow to become the very best they can possibly be. So it's all about motivation, all about empowerment, all about education, and just running it up with everybody.
Yeah. And what a relevant job you do.
Well, I'm dyslexic and have ADHD, and like you can probably see right now, I can't sit still for more than about 30 seconds. I was diagnosed late in life with dyslexia and ADHD. So I was 46 when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and 53 when I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
And so it's something obviously I've lived with my whole life, and I've just taken my experience as pre-COVID. I was a business consultant working mainly in the area of change management. I've taken that experience, brought it into the whole neurodiverse space, and just focus on my tribe.
Yeah, I see. So you were actually in that kind of coaching world anyway. You've now
Yep,
just moved and you've got a stronger niche, obviously, because you've got your
absolutely.
own personal
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything I do is from my own lived experience, my own personal experience. Pre-COVID, as I said, I was a business consultant and coach and trainer and all that sort of stuff. Traveled all over the world, worked with some amazing companies in places like Oman and Saudi Arabia and Dubai and Malaysia and Brunei and the US and Canada and all over the place. Um, Primarily, as I said, in that area of change management, leadership development, management development. So all of that kind of experience,
Yeah.
um, I've brought into the mindset, habits, and flow area, and then just sucked it
Yeah.
up into the neurodiverse space. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take it right back then.
Okay.
So Vic aged, I don't know, 10 to 15, maybe even earlier, 7 to 15.
Yep.
You still would have, been dyslexic and had ADHD.
Yep.
What was going on for you then? Obviously, with absolutely no idea, I'm guessing.
Yeah. No idea. I knew from fairly early on that I was different. I thought differently. I saw things differently. I perceived things differently. I was rubbish at spelling. I was awful at writing, and I was utterly useless at reading.
Hmm.
And so I was in school in South Africa, which schooling back then in the 60s and 70s was really different from the way it is now. And so I sort of between the ages of 7 going to school, that's kind of the age that you would go to school in South Africa. I struggled. I mean, schooling was a thing I absolutely hated. I would find any excuse not to go to school. I can even remember once bandaging my arm up from here right up to here and pretending I'd broken it so that I wouldn't have to go to school. I mean, it's just it kind of in that space because it wasn't a great experience. Outside of school, it was great because we were out in the bush and we were doing all the things that you do in South Africa as a kid in those years. And that was exciting. That attracted my attention. I did, though, have a teacher when I was in, oh, heck, I don't know, I was probably 10 or 11 years old. Uh, Actually, maybe a little bit older than that, probably 13, I think. And he had a way of talking about history and making it live and relevant today. And as a result, I developed this huge passion for history, and I love history and love researching about the Second World War and all that sort of stuff. But he kind of put that into my mind that you could learn about stuff irrespective of your different way of seeing things. And back in those days, if you were dyslexic, because dyslexia was then still really misunderstood,
Yeah.
and it was called word blindness. Because they thought that you had a problem with your eyes and therefore couldn't see the words properly, and so it was word blindness. Other people kind of tended to think that because you were dyslexic, you were stupid,
Yeah.
and so I ended up sitting in the corner a lot with a cap on my head with a little red light on the top, and that's how the teachers treated us, and it wasn't great. Um, ADHD wasn't a thing. We
Yeah.
didn't know about it. I mean, South Africa was probably, or still is, probably 10 years behind the rest of the world when it comes to a lot of these sort of things. But at that time was seriously behind everybody else. And so ADHD only started becoming a thing that had a conversation about it probably in 1990.
Yeah.
Sort of that stage. So I was always thought of as being naughty, disruptive. I couldn't concentrate at school. I'd be sitting in class and the teacher would be talking about some rubbish, and a bird would fly past. Oh, that bird's interesting, and oh, look at the clouds. And then I'd hear a noise over there, and so it was quite disruptive.
Yeah.
So hated school, loved being out in the bush, and made every plan I could to leave school as early as I possibly could. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I had a lot more than that, but yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, and listening to that is just such a quite a typical standard response, isn't it, from someone
Mm.
struggling with ADHD or dyslexia? Just that,
Yeah.
like, not like I was just kind of labeled the stupid one, or I had no attention span. I mean,
Oh, geez, yeah.
yeah, and all that's it. But yeah, it's really funny
Yeah.
actually because spoken to a few people who have been diagnosed with ADHD, or
Yep.
are pretty sure they've got it. And the conversation of actually the topic of history has come up several times that they have all
It is amazing, isn't it?
history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It fascinates me how many people with ADHD are really into history.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, my school report, I'll never forget the one school report that I can remember. It said on there, Vic would be so much better at all these subjects, and they were listed, if he just learned to concentrate a little bit harder.
Oh, yeah.
However, in history, he seems to find whatever it said. But it was kind of this, you're pretty rubbish at everything else because all you need to do is concentrate a little bit more. Geez, please tell somebody with ADHD that they just need to concentrate. I mean, that's like,
Oh,
I don't know, telling a bee not to go and get pollen. It's,
yeah.
it's like stupid,
Yeah.
Anyway,
So misunderstood.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
never officially been tested. I've done those self-diagnosis tests online,
yeah,
and it does come up with ADHD. But at school, I was exactly the same as you, or pretty terrible at every subject, apart from PE.
yeah,
But
okay,
history, the
yeah,
teacher, I remember doing parents' evening, and it was all so dire. It was like I was thinking, this is so painful. And then my history teacher said she should come to Twilight class because she was so good at it. And I was well, not good at it, but also interested, And I
yeah,
think that was the first time anyone had ever said something like giving a
yeah.
glimpse I could excel in a subject.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, absolutely. Yeah. It's
yeah,
just amazing how that when somebody takes an interest in you and says, I've seen you interested in this and
yeah,
let's develop that. You can be really good at this. It's amazing how people with dyslexia, ADHD start to blossom, start to grow, start to develop, start to go, oh, this is cool. I can do this.
yeah,
It's amazing. And my teacher, when I was, as I say, about 13, he took an interest in me and he was like, yeah, let's talk to you about history. And he would
yeah,
explain all sorts of stuff through um, history lessons. So I used to struggle with maths, and he'd say, "All right, come on, let's work this out," And he'd construct a scenario from history like, I don't know, maybe from the Napoleonic Wars. And he would construct a scenario that was real or not real, but the characters were real. And he'd kind of put it together and he'd go, well, there were so many of these and so many of that. And then he'd say, okay, now put that all together. And I go, oh, well, that's easy.
Yeah.
And maths suddenly became alive. So yeah, it's yeah, it's interesting how many people that are ADHD have such an interest in history.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about that. I'm gonna look into that. So obviously we know what schooling was like for you. Then
Yeah,
fast forward a little bit. You've had a successful career. You're kind of
yeah,
like career from like 20 to kind of, well, I guess not up until your diagnosis, because I think you would have realized a few years before, but
yeah.
that's sort of like 15, 20 years of core of your career. How did your ADHD and your dyslexia like kind of get in the way of your role, of your job? And then
Yeah.
also, we'll talk about the hindrance first. How
Yeah.
is it a hindrance for you?
Okay, so when I was 16, I left school and
Yeah.
I went to the military and I joined up
Okay.
on what we called permanent force at the time. So
Okay.
I joined permanent force, which was a short-term contract, and they would renew it every now and again. And I was there for 6.5 years, and it was the best 6.5 years of my life. And the reason for that is that I went in with I needed structure in my life.
Yeah.
And the military gave me that structure. They gave me the structure of understanding that if I just followed certain things, I would be good to go. And I loved my time in the military. Um, I left because of a medical condition, and then I moved on. But
Yeah.
the stuff that I learned in the military did teach me a lot of things that has helped me through life.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I left, I went and started I worked in a restaurant first, and then I went and started a business. In the restaurant, my I think we can call it the ADHD factor. Um, we generally tend to be gregarious kind of people that are people, although we try and stay away from them. It's kind of that two sides of the same coin. I loved it in the restaurant because I could engage with people, I could talk with them, I
Mm.
could see things happening, but I didn't have to get involved in the minutiae. Yeah, big picture, that was great. That was fantastic. Um, then I left the restaurant and I went and worked for myself, started a business, and the the challenge I found there and the hindrance I found there is probably the whole dyslexia thing, and that is I love the big picture, but don't ask me to do the small things, the detail. Detail means absolutely diddly to me. Not interested. So it was great running the business, making the business work, having a great vision for the future, getting the new clients in, doing all that sort of stuff. But then I had to do the paperwork and fill in the job cards and do the HR because I had staff working for me, and I had to do all that stuff, man. And that was probably the thing that killed my business
Yeah.
because I wasn't on top of um the day-to-day minutia. I wanted the big picture. And my whole life has been like that. And I've learned over the years to say, okay, these are the things I'm good at. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. Let me outsource them. Give them to somebody else that can do them.
Yeah.
And I've noticed throughout my career, my life, when I've remained focused on, or I've tried to focus on the small stuff, it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's probably, I think that's probably something I would say to anybody who's dyslexic or ADHD. Um, Focus on what's your strengths. Find those things that you're really good at, you're strong at, and you have a passion for. And the other stuff, give it off to somebody else. Let them do it.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are really, really good at doing the minute detail stuff. And
Yeah.
they love it and they're excited about it. And that's a good thing. So give
Yeah.
it off to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for me, like email. Oh God, when
Oh,
when back in the day, before email came about, oh, life was heaven because I didn't have to deal with it. Back in the day, people would send you a letter in the post that would take 3, 4, 5 days. And if you read it over 3 or 4, 5 days, it was okay because they only expected you to respond in a month's time. Now, if they send you an email, it's like, get on it, and that kills
Yeah.
me. It just drives me mad. So I think the 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 biggest hindrance I've had through my career, through my life, is that focus, that problem with focusing on the small stuff, the little stuff. And if
Yeah.
you're in a job, which fortunately I haven't had a job for a fairly long time, although I've had good jobs and I've done well in them. Where I failed in those jobs
Mm.
is when I've had to focus on the small stuff, focus on the
Yeah.
minute stuff. However, however, I'm very good at analyzing data.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I can take a company's books, for example, and I did this when I was in Oman. They asked me to help them restructure a company, and they couldn't understand why the money was going out the back door. Literally, they couldn't see it. I took their financials. I looked through it, and I think it was an hour later, I'd recognized where the hole was,
Mm.
and we were able to deal with it. But don't ask me to put that thing together. I mean, that is just the end of the world for me. That detail, but I can find the thing in there that's
Yeah.
caused the problem. So it's kind of that that's what I'm strong at. The rest outsource. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah.
yeah, there
Well,
we go.
it is a hindrance. It's a hindrance physically and mentally, isn't it?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
physically, you're struggling to write an email quickly or whatever. But
Oh,
mentally, you then start questioning, oh my gosh, this is too much. I'm overwhelmed. Then you get low self-worth. And then
yeah,
so mentally, after a period of time, especially
yeah.
personally, I found doing my qualifications and when I've had to write assessments,
Oh,
like if
hello.
someone, I'm like, as soon as it says something like 8,000 words, I just go, oh, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And like, so I said, if I could just voice note this out to you,
Yeah.
then it's very different. But anyway,
Well, the nice thing is now, there are wonderful programs that you can get that, so I don't have to write emails anymore. I've got these fantastic programs that write my emails for me. All I need to do is talk them. I talk and it writes the email for me. It creates a sentence, restructures it for me, tells me where I've said the thing and it doesn't kind of make sense. So there's all these
excuse me, what
wonderful.
is this called? Tell me everything.
Well, there's loads of them, or there's I won't say loads. There's quite a few programs that you can get that are really, really powerful that do that kind of thing. But you
Mhm.
can get a program called Grammarly, for example.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you get the free one, which is great. But if you get the premium version, man, you get so much inside there. Grammarly has changed my life.
Okay.
There's another program that I use. And I teach people with dyslexia and ADHD how to use these programs
Oh
through
wow.
my courses. Um, but there's another program called Text Help, Read and Write. It sits on your PC and it does that for you. It's got this wonderful AI background, and as it runs through it, the voice it talks in is so good you can hardly tell it between a human and that AI voice.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it will read my emails to me,
Mm.
it will summarize my emails for me, and it will help me create the responses. So I don't have to go to something like, and I do use it, but ChatGPT. I
Mm.
don't have to take my email, put it in ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT or the other types of programs like that to create an answer. The email comes in. I just turn on read write, and it starts writing an answer for me, and it will ask me, is that answer applicable? And I'll go, no, change that, do the. I don't have to type,
Oh,
which is bonus. I've
yeah.
I've written 2 books, and I'm writing 4 more, and it's all voice to um, to text. But there's
Yeah.
another excellent program, and if I'm looking this way, it's because I'm looking at my other screen,
Yeah.
because I forget the names of things very quickly. But there's a couple of other programs that I use, and one is called Descript, or
Ah,
if you're American, Descript.
oh yeah.
But Descript is you take your podcast, you've got video in your podcast, you've got audio in your podcast. Right, you take your video once it's recorded, and you upload it into Descript, and it transcribes. Excuse me, it transcribes that whole thing for you.
Wow. Gosh, I did
And
not know
it
about
is,
this.
oh, it is so good. It's amazing what it does. And you can manipulate your video, create new scenes, you can take parts out, you can tell it to where I've gone all the time. It takes
Yeah.
that out for you. So
Wow.
there's fantastic things available that can really enhance the life of people with dyslexia and ADHD if you know where to find them.
Yeah, yeah. And this is amazing because actually people who do struggle with this have severely struggled, to get by,
Hugely.
especially in
Oh,
working environments. So
yeah,
I know there's a lot of chatter around AI now and the benefits and
yeah,
and so many benefits, etc. And there's going to be pros and cons to all of it. But in terms of like, if you are neurodivergent, you have got any of these
yeah,
struggles, I mean, that's fantastic, right?
absolutely. So
Finally.
this headset that I'm wearing, okay, this is noise canceling. I can't hear anything out there. So my dog barks. That's other people's problem. I can't hear her.
Yeah.
She can be standing right here next to me barking. This, I can put it on, look at my computer screen, and I just get on with my day and I don't worry about it. It helps me focus.
Ah, yeah.
And because I'm not needing to type and I'm not worried about the how I'm spelling and the grammar and all that sort of stuff, I'm just talking and it writes. Oh, heaven,
Heaven.
absolute heaven.
Absolute heaven. I am buzzing for this. When we get off this call, that's it. Amazon Prime or whatever it is, we buy my.
Well, the problem is those things you can't just buy like that. But there's a fantastic for people in the UK. There's a fantastic government program called Access to Work, which I help people to get on and get these sort of things through that government-funded platform. And it's you can go onto Access to Work yourself, and you can put all your details in. But if you don't know um, if you don't know what you need and how you need it, and when you need it, and in the way you need it, they're going to give you all the wrong stuff because the person sitting on the other side assessing your application,
Mm,
typically they've got no idea of what you're talking about. So I help people put their application together, put it on, and in 3 months' time they get approval because that's how long it takes to get approval. But all of these things for people in the UK, I don't think it's available in Scotland or. Yeah, I don't think it's available in Scotland. I think there's a different system, or people that are in government service, so civil servants. But for self-employed people, for people who have got jobs,
yeah.
it's a fantastic thing that has got like a 5% take up. And the government has made a huge amount of money available to help us.
Yeah,
We just got to
mate.
know where to find it and take advantage of it and use it to
That's
help us.
it. I think people need to know what's available to them and also
Yeah,
understand themselves better as well because you've
absolutely.
been diagnosed. So that means you've been tested. There's so many people out there, isn't there, that don't know about it
Don't
yet,
know. Yeah,
can't afford to get tested.
absolutely. And the nice thing about access to work is it's
Yeah,
self-identification.
yeah,
So you don't have to wait for your diagnosis. All you have to do is and I always say this to everybody, if you want to get access to that which is available to you, just have the integrity to have at least gone and done a test, the online test,
yeah,
and
yeah,
know what your story is, what your history is, because they will ask you and they'll try and work it out. Because obviously there are people that will try and con the system, and we want to avoid that. But if you know that you are, whether you've been tested or not,
mm,
you can get access to that kind of equipment that can, seriously, Al, it can change people's lives. You
yeah.
know?
No, I can
I mean,
imagine.
I'm like bouncing off the walls when I talk about this kind of stuff because it is
Yeah,
so good. Uh, the other day, I'm big on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn, and I teach people as dyslexic and ADHDs. or ADHDers how to use LinkedIn in a way that works for them. They plugged in obviously LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. Okay.
Hmm.
And Microsoft has got this thing called Immersive Reader.
Okay.
Okay. They've now plugged it into LinkedIn. And through the article section where you do your articles or your newsletters, I can have my PC talk to me that article. So I can go onto my PC, I can open up an article that's on LinkedIn about something that I'm interested in, but I don't have the time to read it or the inclination to read it or the skill to read it. I can turn on the immersive reader and bang, it reads it out to me.
Ah,
But
that's
not
fab.
only reads it out to me, I can set it in such a way that it'll break it into syllables. So
Yeah.
as it's talking, I can watch my screen and I can see I can hear how they say the word, and then
Mm,
I can see how the syllables are broken up, and I, as a dyslexic, can learn. I
yeah.
mean,
Amazing.
how radical is that? I mean, that's just like, wow,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's so nuts. It is. It's all absolutely crazy. So
Yeah. But
there's
now,
yeah.
I unfortunately, and sorry to interrupt you, I didn't have that as a kid growing up.
No.
So people nowadays with dyslexia, ADHD, people of my age, I mean, I'm just turned 60,
Yeah.
and we can relearn so much. You know, stuff we forgot, stuff that we left behind, stuff that we said, that's too hard.
Yeah, can't
We
do
can
that.
now learn and
Yeah.
we can take that forward and we can make a difference in our world.
Yeah, so talking about that, like making a difference. Like I know a lot of people say, no, I see my ADHD as a superpower. So we've talked about the hindrance for you in your
Yep.
working career. Also talk about it, personally as well. But where have you seen your ADHD, probably more so ADHD, where have you seen that be beneficial in your working career, but also like personally in relationships?
I think so I'm not fond of the idea or the wording that ADHD or dyslexia are superpowers. I'm
Yeah,
not fond of that construct because
yeah,
um it misses out the challenges that we do face. The
totally.
challenges in relationships, the
Yeah,
challenges with finance. I mean, I think I think the statistics that were put out by one of the banks recently, or a couple of years ago, was that 64% of all people with ADHD are deeply in debt
yeah.
and can't fund their debt. You know, so debt is a big problem. All those things. So if we say ADHD is a superpower, we tend to discard the realities of living with ADHD
Yeah.
or being a partner who lives with somebody that's got ADHD or dyslexia. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been married for 30 years. The hell my wife has put up with, how she hasn't walked out, I've got no idea. She's got thick skin, thicker than a rhino. But where I've seen my dyslexia and ADHD being an advantage
Yes. Yeah.
is spatial reasoning for
Yeah.
me. I can I can understand space in a very different way to what other people can do it. Now,
Mhm.
my wife's a trained interior decorator.
Mhm.
Okay, she can walk in and she can go the sofa can go there, the TV can go there, the chair can go there. I can't see that. I cannot see that. But for me, my spatial reasoning is let's take it in a sort of military context, if you want. I can visually see that group of people there, that group of people there, that group of people, how they're going to move together and how they're going to interact. So I run a lot of networking groups, LinkedIn Local down here in the Southwest. And in my LinkedIn local groups, I know, for example, so on Thursday morning this week, we've got a morning LinkedIn local at a local car dealership. And I know that I know the people that are coming. And then on Thursday morning, when I get there, I'll be there first and I'll be able to kind of perceive how people on that list are going to move in that space.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my perception of space.
Yeah.
Okay, I can perceive where things are going to go, and because I can perceive that and see that and understand that, I can move people to the conversations they need to have.
Yeah.
So the networking becomes a a strength for them. The
Yes.
other thing I found I really work well with most people with dyslexia and ADHD are very empathetic.
Mm.
And so I find I am able to empathize rather than sympathize with people in the sense that I can understand their pain, their struggles, their
Mm.
challenges in a different way,
Yeah.
and so help them so much better further down the road.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's been a lot of things. So, for example, I did some work with a company in Saudi Arabia. What do they call them? An air conditioning company. They asked me to come in and help them understand the structure of their business and how they could reposition that for growth. And because of that kind of out of the box thinking that most dyslexics do have, I was able to construct something for them that they hadn't even come close to thinking about.
Mm.
So I think for me, the other strength that I think dyslexia and ADHD give is that out of the box thinking. I think for most dyslexics, we don't see a box um, for anything, and so that one of the things in I said earlier, the people that I like to work with is the people who are change makers. Because change makers don't see a box. They see the periphery. They see on the outside. I've got a very good friend that I've made via LinkedIn. He talks about peripheral thinking, and he always in his LinkedIn post he always says, "See you on the periphery,"
Yeah.
and people with dyslexia tend to look on the outside for answers rather than looking where everybody else is looking and not finding answers. We look on the outside and draw that thing in. So I think that those sort of things are strengths. I
Yeah.
never would call them a superpower because um, it kind of discounts the other stuff that goes along
Discounts.
with it, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is, you know, which is big for people, isn't it? When if you do just look at all the positives, actually, like you say,
yeah,
people may not understand the struggles that don't actually go on behind the
absolutely.
scenes.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you're very into the health space.
Yes, yeah,
Um, so for people with dyslexia and ADHD, and we mentioned this before you started recording, um, binge eating,
yeah,
binge drinking, um, all those things are major struggles. I mean, I was reading some stuff the other day about youth offenders in the UK, and I think if I remember correctly, it's something like 64% or 65%. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's 60 plus percent of all youth offenders have ADHD undiagnosed. And
yeah,
it's only diagnosed or recognized when they're in the youth offender system, the youth justice system. And by the time they're there, man, they're sliding down the bottom end of the scale. So it's all um, those kind of things that I think we got to be aware of, not making the assumption that it's a superpower. I mean,
yeah,
in my case, you asked earlier about sort of 7 to 15. Um, if I hadn't been given one piece of advice when I was 15 years old, and that was to leave school and go to the military, um, I probably would have ended up in the criminal justice system in South Africa. I was forever looking for the naughty thing to do.
mm-hmm.
So um, I think talking about it as a superpower glosses over the challenges, the real challenges that people with dyslexia and ADHD face. However, there is the upside. There's all the positives.
Yeah,
So I think we need a balance. We need to see those challenges, but we need to see those wonderful things that people with dyslexia and ADHD can bring to the table. Yeah, and
yeah.
and one of those things is like right now I'm rattling off at the mouth, and taking over your show.
No. This is exactly why you are here. You are a guest on my show. Okay, so we're kind of coming to the end now. So, if you'd say for people listening, maybe I'm just trying to think of like, I reckon the biggest issue is people unsure whether they, if they have got something or not. They can't
Yeah,
afford to get the test. The
yeah,
NHS is 2 years, wait, whatever. Um,
7 years behind. Yeah,
7 years. So
Yeah.
what would you say is there, what is your top tips for someone who's kind of sat thinking, oh, I don't know what's wrong with me?
I think there's two things primarily, Elle, and that is number one, change your mindset. Obviously, you could change the word mindset for perspective, but change your mindset toward what ADHD or dyslexia are. I do a whole session about educating people on the what these things are from a physiological perspective. What actually happens in the brain, in the neural, in the nervous system of people that have dyslexia and ADHD? How did they come about having that condition? And is it curable? And I think when we change our mindsets to understand what these things are, we can then leverage that mindset to say, okay, now I need to go and find out if I am. When I find out that I am, it's again changing the mindset. A lot of people say to me, Vic, I don't want a label. I don't want to be labeled as dyslexic, or I don't want to be labeled as ADHD. So I'm not going to get a diagnosis. Change your freaking mindset. I've never come across a doctor who is embarrassed to be called doctor. That's a label. I've never come across a lawyer, and I've worked with lots of them, who does not like being called a solicitor. That's a label. I've never come across a mom who doesn't like being called a mom. That's a label. So it changed your mindset from this thing of it's a label to this is who I am.
Yeah.
I understand what the positives and the negatives are. Now let me leverage that by changing my habits, by working on my habits and getting into that space where I am a contributor to society rather than an excavator, a taker of society. I add value. I bring something to the party. Because I understand who I am. And so I think I think my biggest tip, change the way you think. Change your mindset, and everything from there changes.
Amazing. Thank you. And follow you, because you have so much insight and knowledge to share. So where can people find you?
I'm all over LinkedIn like a cheap suit.
Okay.
So you can follow me on LinkedIn. Just type in Vic Williams. Unfortunately, there is another Vic Williams, and he's a former politician in America. Don't follow him. It would be the wrong one. But yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request. If you're in the dyslexia and ADHD space, I'm likely to connect with you, to accept your connection request. But I'm also on Instagram, on Facebook. Just type in my name, you'll find me pretty easy. And then I've got my website is theaudaciouscompany.com. And all my courses and stuff are available on there. But primarily find me on LinkedIn. All the other details are there: telephone numbers, email addresses, the whole bunch.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I will put all of that in the show notes so people don't have to be like, oh, I don't know what he's saying. All of your links and all the rest of it will be there.
Awesome.
But yeah, thank you so much, Vic, and have a wonderful, what night day are we on? Tuesday, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
That's all right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers then. Bye.